The following program is to provide entertainment and information. It is not considered to be any legal or investment advice. Good morning, appraisers. Let's talk some real estate. You're listening to the Voice of Appraisal, the #1 appraisal podcast in America today that brings you the latest news and information from the front lines of the real estate market. Anything from market conditions, appraisal regulations, cryptocurrencies, big bank news. Folks, you have a question, we have all of your answers. We are the one-stop source for all of your real estate appraisal information needs. If you want to be in the know, you have definitely tuned in to the right show. I'm your host, Phil Crawford. Happy to have all of you here with us today. Kevin.
Hey, Phil.
Yes, Kevin.
We always say we have big news for everybody.
Yes.
What's the huge news of the day?
Voice of Appraisal is now syndicated.
Yes.
Syndicated. That's right. Go to www.industrysyndicate.com. That's industrysyndicate.com. And you will see that Voice of Appraisal has now joined the Industry Syndicate, a network of high-quality real estate podcasts for American consumers, for American real estate investors, for agents, for mortgage brokers, all of those things. Kevin, absolutely unbelievable. And we want to thank all of those individuals that are involved in the Industry Syndicate for inviting us to come on over and join the party. It's going to be a terrific time this year in 2019.
Exactly. And what I also like about it the most,
yes,
I believe there are 27 different podcasts on there.
Yes.
We are the only appraisal podcast.
We are the only appraisal podcast because they want to make sure they have high-quality podcasts when it comes to that network, and we are a high-quality appraiser podcast. That is for sure, Kevin. That is for sure. You know, this is kind of the way that the podcasting world is going. Have you noticed that? The wild west of podcasting where anybody would go out and say, I'm going to start a podcast, and they get 10 downloads, and it's really cool, and I got a podcast because I'm out here and I'm doing something that's really neat. Those days are starting to fall away, and the consumers of podcasts are saying, you know what? We need to go to where the high-quality ones are. We need to go to where we can find not only high-quality podcasts, but those that complement each other. And you're starting to see that now with network development, and, of course, this is with the Industry Syndicate. And I think this is cutting edge for all of us in the appraisal world because now we have opened up our world from 5,000 to 8,000 original downloads to 175,000 downloads to maybe over 200,000 downloads. So it's going to work out really nice for all of us because all of the issues that affect us on a regular basis, we always say to ourselves, man, if only the real estate agents would know this, or if only the consumers would know this, and all of these people, well, now they will get the opportunity to hear it. Because as you know, for the past 5 years, we have never held back when it comes to what is going on in our industry. And now the real estate agents that are part of the network, a part of the syndicate, are going to be able to say to people, hey, look, you know what, if you want to know what's going on in the appraisal world, well, you better just tune in to Phil and Kevin because they're going to tell you everything that's going on. And they're going to realize in very, very short order, we're going to get some outside eyes, some extremely forward-thinking outside eyes. They're going to realize what a gigantic shit show this entire profession has become over the course of the last 3 years. They're going to be like, what in the living hell is going on with appraisers throughout the country? It's absolutely unbelievable, Kevin.
I was kind of worried there. I thought you were going to say that they would realize that Kevin's just a little off the
We all knew
side.
that, but that's fine, man, because that's entertainment, baby. That's what sells. That's what sells. And they're going to realize I'm a little bit off, too, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. No, it's going to be a lot of fun. For those of you that are listening in from the syndicate, listen, this is going to be great. We're actually breaking our fourth wall. Voice of Appraisal, the podcast, will actually be like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a movie that is just classically breaks the fourth wall. You got Ferris, and he's talking to all of his buddies, and all of a sudden he just starts talking to the audience. You're going to start to see the show that is the appraisal profession. And when we break that fourth wall with you every now and then, we want to ask for your opinions and say, hey, look, you know what? Chime in a little bit. Talk to the National Association of Realtors. Talk to all of these people because now you're going to understand what happens on our side. So this will enable this gigantic fourth wall to be broken, and all of the information that comes out of the appraisal profession will go into your hands. Remember also, for those of you in the appraisal profession that are causing problems, those of you that have drama, those of you that are just not helping out anywhere, remember, now that is going to filter through to some very good forward-thinking professionals, and they're not going to put up with it. The one thing about real estate agents and loan officers, and the one thing about consumer groups and things like that, is they don't put up with dumb stuff. And if you're doing dumb stuff in this profession, guess what? Amateur time is over. Get the hell out, because now we're starting to expand out to a much broader and wider audience. I told all of you guys at the very beginning of this year, we're going to have a nationwide marketing campaign. And that starts with something like this, and we are so excited to be part of it. It also starts with additional podcast advertising. It starts with trade show advertising, starts with trade show promotion. We're bringing the appraiser's message to other professionals and consumers throughout the country. Now, for those of you that are syndicate listeners, I want you to go to a website. It's very, very important. Go to www.getmytruevalue.com. That's getmytruevalue.com. What you're going to find there is a list of appraisers throughout the country. It's going to get larger and larger and larger as time goes on. Those are the appraisers that you need to establish a relationship with right now, because weird things are going on in the appraisal industry, weird things are going on in the banking industry, and you need to establish a very good relationship with those appraisers, especially you realtors out there and you property investors, you flippers, you guys that want to get into rental properties, something along those lines. You need to go to getmytruevalue.com and establish a relationship with one of our appraisers. You may not have an order right now, but at least establish a good relationship with them. Get them into your cell phone, get them into your contacts, so that way you know if you need an appraisal in the future, then that's the person that you need to call. Interview a bunch of them. Now, more and more will come on. So if there's not an appraiser in your area at the moment, don't worry about it. Over time, more and more appraisers will start to join this particular network. It's a nationwide marketing campaign. The real estate appraisers throughout this country, folks, they've had enough. They've had enough with the watering down of the appraisal process at the banking side. And because the banks are starting to water down that appraisal process, it's going to hurt your clients, especially you real estate agents out there. Your clients are going to get hurt. And when they get hurt, they're going to be upset. And when they get upset, they're going to try to sue somebody. The only problem is the appraisal won't be done at the time that they get their loan. So guess who they're going to come and sue? They're going to come and sue you. That's the situation. You are going to be on the hook for these appraisals that are not being done. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're creating what are called property inspection waivers. We call it pissing in the wind. In other words, they use an AVM to do the appraisal on that particular purchase, and they don't have an appraisal performed. Folks, that's going to affect you as real estate agents. Go to www.getmytruevalue.com and establish a relationship with one of our appraisers as soon as you possibly can. Now, for those of you that are syndicate members, you're going to hear some terminology on this show. We've got a little bit of terminology on this show that if you're new to listening to it, you're not going to understand what we're talking about. But don't worry. Don't worry. We're going to explain it. We're not going to lose you when it comes to our terminology. But Kevin, my dear friend, I think it's probably the last time we need to play the music.
Oh, no.
Go for it.
I'm too sexy for my love. Too sexy for my love. Love's going to leave me.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Brian Koester from Koester Valuation Management Solutions. Folks, it looks like it's over, folks. It looks like there was a gigantic garage sale over at Koester VMS. I got a photograph from a source over the weekend that showed some pictures of what it looks like is the old Enron building, is what it is. It's got all the computers sitting out there, and it looks like everything's being auctioned off. It's not only the Enron building, it also reminds me of the old Zayo building. Remember the Zayo? Oh, yeah, Zayo. Oh, wait a second. Those guys, they started another company called Clarosity, and now they're out of business, too. So that's terrific. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are syndicate owners, you have to understand that Brian Koester at one time, and we still probably think he is the owner of what is known as an appraisal management company. They are called AMCs, appraisal management companies. They are the classic middleman when it comes to the way that appraisals are ordered. After the Dodd-Frank Act and after the financial crisis of 2007, the government decided that they were going to put in these quote-unquote barrier companies, so that way the loan officer couldn't talk to the appraiser and say, hey, dude, you know what, make it worth this much money, and we're all going to make some money together, right? So they brought in these barrier companies, these third-party companies that came in, and they called them appraisal management companies. They've been around for a long time, but after the financial crisis, they took over. Well, Brian Koester of Koester Valuation Management Solutions, he was a pretty flashy guy. He's pretty flashy. Look him up. Google him. See all the pictures of him out there. He's a flashy man. That man, after he buys a new suit, he orders a photo shoot, ladies and gentlemen. That is Brian Koester. He said, you know what? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start an appraisal management company. Well, folks, a lot of them did, and now a lot of them are going under. The reason why you can't get an appraisal done quickly is because a great majority of these particular companies took over the mortgage market after the crisis, And guess what? They didn't pay the appraiser peanuts. The appraiser said, look, I'm not working for you. You're rude. You're mean. You ask for stupid things, and you pay me half my market rate. Why do I want to work for you? You guys are crazy. Economics took over, and guess what? Now you as real estate agents, you as loan officers, you as American consumers are paying twice the amount of money that you need to pay for an appraiser, and you're waiting twice as long, all because of these companies. Well, now it appears that their day has now come. Their chickens have come home to roost. There's a hell of a lot of them going under. That's all I got to say.
A long time ago, for the listeners out there, I wanted to tell everybody exactly what I thought of AMCs.
Yes.
But Phil told me, no, we got to keep it clean.
That's right. And we're going to keep it clean. Because they're in the corner bifurcating, so we have to keep it clean. But it is. They have really wrecked a lot of the portion. And every time you hear that word shortage, there's a shortage of appraisers. It's not that there's a shortage of appraisers. It's just there's a shortage of appraisers that don't want to work for these companies. Well, a lot of them are going under because they're very, very top heavy. They're fat. They get on the very, very top. They got these people out there that they hire in at extremely high salaries. They bring them in about $150,000, maybe $200,000 a year. Well, when the orders start to decline in their business, guess what happens? Now, hold on. Here's how it works. The bank pays them the money, or the homeowner pays them the money for the appraisal fee and the markup. Now, remember, the markup is the AMCs. That's their markup. Now, when their order count goes down, that markup may not be able to cover all those big fat asses at the very top making all those big salaries. So guess what happens? They get into what should be segregated funds. That's basically the fees that are paid to appraisers. They start dipping into appraisers' fees and not paying appraisers, not paying them on time. Next thing you know, they go out of business and they leave the appraisers hanging for $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $70,000. The bank's now on the hook because they got to repay it, or the money was stolen because the homeowner took it, paid it to the AMC, and they just pocketed it into their fat cat, fat ass, big fat, over-bloated fat asses on the very top that go ahead and make all the fat money, and they screw over the appraisers below them. That's what's going on, syndicate members. That's what's going on, and it is going on big time right now. The fact that there has never been any law or regulation that these individual companies, like a title company, has got to have some sort of escrow account to segregate the funds between their funds and the appraisers is beyond me. But guess what? That loophole is now causing havoc and chaos throughout this country, and you're going to start to see it more and more. So I wanted to make sure you guys understood exactly what an appraisal management company was. Now, these appraisal management companies, they get together at these conferences throughout the country, and what ends up happening is the conferences, they go out there, and there's especially a conference that's ran by a lady by the name of Joan Trice. Joan Trice. Now, she put out an advertisement one time to one of her conferences, and they're basically AMC conferences, that said to everybody in the world, come and see how the sausage is made. When she said, come and see how the sausage is made, first of all, Kevin and I were absolutely appalled because I do not want to see sausage being made. It's quite disgusting, actually. Why would anybody want to spend good money to see sausage being made? So at that particular time, Joan Trice created on Voice of Appraisal the term sausage party. So every single time you see one of these AMC conventions, they are nothing more than a sausage party. And the sausage that they put out is their propaganda. The AMCs have a lot of propaganda that they put out to the American consumer and to American real estate agents. There's a shortage of appraisals. There's a shortage of there's not enough appraisers out there. It's taking too long to get an appraisal done. All bullshit because of the sausage. That's AMC corporate appraisal propaganda, and all of you need to know that. On this show, we are sausage free. There's no sausage in Voice of Appraisal, and there's no sausage at getmytruevalue.com. You're dealing specifically with the appraiser in the field. Now, on other shows and on future shows, especially for those of you that are syndicate listeners, we're going to go over a lot of those letters. So if you take a look at an appraiser, they have some letters behind the name. So we're going to go over some of those letters and what those letters mean. Some of those letters are extremely important. Those are extremely important designations. They take a very, very long time to get, and they're worth it. They really are. They're top-notch real estate appraisers. Other of those designations are give me some money and you get to have the letter. We're going to start breaking that down as well. But just watch out. You're going to hear the word sausage a lot on this show, and that has to do with the appraisal management company profession. There's a lot of people out there that speak for the appraisal profession. They want to go out there and they want to bloviate and they want to pontificate and say, I speak for the appraisers throughout this country. And the only problem is as soon as they say that, they take a gigantic crap in their punch bowl because guess what? They have a job inside of the sausage factory, and that is a gigantic poop in their punch bowl from the very beginning. So a lot of things going on in the Voice of Appraisal world, folks. You just have to get used to our terminology. Once it kicks in, you're going to be addicted to it. That is for sure. My number one goal, Kevin, my number one goal for 2019 is to have the words "no sausage" said at the National Association of Realtors Conference. I would absolutely, can you imagine the NAR conference? No sausage. No, but we have a lot of goals for 2019, that is for sure. The other thing about this entire situation with Coaster VMS, now, believe it or not, he went out of business. If he's not out of business, he's not paying his bills. So I do have to give a big hats off, thumbs up to Sierra Pacific Mortgage. I guess Sierra Pacific Mortgage worked with Brian Coaster and his sausage party over there. It looks like they're stepping in and paying all of the account payables that Brian Coaster had to the appraisers they didn't pay. Sierra Pacific Mortgage is jumping in there and saying, we're going to go ahead and pay him for you. They sent out a letter just recently with a contact of Lynn De La Osa. It's a letter coming from Paul Hubbard over at Sierra Pacific Mortgage. So I want to thank everybody over at Sierra Pacific for being a stand-up type of company, saying, you know what, we had a situation with Coaster VMS for non-payment, and we're jumping in and we're making sure that all the invoices are paid. That's top-notch. That's a top-notch company right there. That is exactly what we need to look at. And Sierra Pacific, hey, listen, you don't need to use an AMC. Don't let them say that you need to use an AMC. You can be Dodd-Frank compliant inside of your own walls. You don't need to have an appraisal management company out there. And this right here, you don't use an AMC, you won't be put in this position before. So our congratulations to Sierra Pacific Mortgage. You are friends of Voice of Appraisal. But I am totally, unbelievably, and impeccably disenfranchised right now, Kevin. I am so disenfranchised by the entire regulatory system. This is enough to drive you crazy. Remember, these appraisal management companies, up until recently, were not regulated. They have been regulated, I'd say, within the last, 4 years. But it's been a state-to-state issue. So there's been a lot of states out there that don't regulate appraisal management companies, but a lot of them do. And there's been a lot of states, especially Virginia and Florida, that knew something was going on with this Coaster VMS. They knew something was there. There was some smoke, and they saw he had multiple complaints in multiple different states, and not a damn thing was done about it. Not a damn thing was done about it. So I am really disenfranchised right now with the entire regulatory system when it comes to Coaster VMS. This was a total, absolute breakdown and embarrassment of regulators throughout this country. Those of you states that had AMC regulation on the books, you dropped the frickin' ball. And because you dropped the ball and you didn't do anything about it, there's a lot of appraisers out there that are not getting paid. And remember, Brian Coaster is not the first one that's going to go down. Some will merge together. They'll go ahead and start becoming bigger companies. But some of them, folks, they're not going to pay their bills. And that is a complete and absolute breakdown of regulatory issues and regulations, in my personal opinion. I'm sorry, I'm going to call it like it is. Appraisers out there losing thousands upon thousands of dollars in accounts receivables because regulators can't do their job correctly. You better jump on that. Now, if you're a state that didn't have AMC regulation in the last couple of years, you get a pass. But don't let it happen again. Come on. Do you see what's going on, syndicate members? Do you see what's going on? There's a lot of things that are going on inside the appraisal profession, but the AMC, the appraisal management companies, are going to be a lot of trouble this year because they've outstayed their welcome in the marketplace. And I'll tell you something, the bigger and the fatter they are on top, the harder they're going to fall as they go down. They are the reason why you are not getting your appraisals on time. They are also the reason why something else is going on in this country as well. And I want you to listen to me really close on this one. Because of all of this sausage talk out there and the inability for these particular companies to work with the vast amount of appraisers throughout the country because their business model is just disgusting and it doesn't work. It's because of that we have had this quote-unquote shortage talk. We've had this there's not enough appraisers out there talk. And that has caused the Federal Reserve and the OCC and the Department of Treasury to look into expanding what is known as the de minimis. The de minimis is the amount of exposure that a loan has in order for it to qualify for a non-appraisal product. So let me give you an example here. The old de minimis, or how the de minimis sits right now, is if you have a loan that is over $250,000 on a residential piece of property, you have to have an appraisal performed. If it's under $250,000, well, you don't really have to have an appraisal performed, but you have to have some sort of evaluation done that meets the quote-unquote interagency guideline. But evaluations are done by non-licensed individuals, while appraisals are done by certified or licensed individuals within inside of their state. I will argue all day long that the appraisal is more accurate than the evaluation. I will argue that all day long, unless, of course, the evaluation is being done by an appraiser that gave up their appraiser license because they don't want to deal with all the regulation. So that being said, the OCC and the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve have all heard all of this propaganda about all of these issues inside of the appraisal profession, and guess what? They're now trying to raise the de minimis. In other words, they're taking it from $250,000 on residential, and they're trying to raise it up to $400,000. Look, there's going to be big implications when it comes to this $400,000 de minimis raise. So everybody that represents you as real estate agents and appraisers are against this policy. We don't want to go back to the days prior to the crash of 2008 because that helps nobody out at all. But yet, raising this de minimis increases the risk when it comes to the banking system. So what ends up happening is, and you have to understand this about the appraisal profession, the appraisal industry is a confederation. All of these different organizations and groups that, when they are called upon, get together for the best interest of the profession. And what happened this last week was exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to give a big shout out to 30 of the state coalitions out there today. I can't mention them all right now, but 30 state coalitions, which, by the way, for those of you that are syndicate members, that's where your power is. A lot of your power is in your appraiser state coalitions. 30 of them got together and drafted a letter through Constantine and Cannon out of Washington, D.C., taking a stand against the de minimis rise. It's bad risk assessment for banks. It's bad for consumer advocacy, for consumer protection, and for the public trust. It's terrible. Those 30 state coalitions drafted a letter together, and we thank them very much. Of course, they were sent up to the OCC, to the FDIC, and to the Federal Reserve. But the 30 state coalitions were not the only people that sent a letter up to the Federal Reserve and the OCC and the Treasury Department. Also, the American Society of Appraisers, they're also known as the ASA, the Appraisal Institute, the American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers, the Association of Valuation Professionals, and the American Guild of Appraisers, an affiliation with the AFL-CIO, also sent a letter up to these agencies saying, hey, look, bad idea, bad idea. Guess who else sent a letter up to the agencies saying bad idea? The National Association of Realtors. Folks, they get it. Your NAR gets it. They understand it. I want you to listen to something that is in the National Association of Realtor letter against the de minimis raise. It says here, on behalf of more than 1.3 million members of the NAR, we thank you for the opportunity on commenting on a proposal to increase the current appraisal threshold for federally related transactions from $250,000 to $400,000. The NAR agrees that the current appraisal threshold should be evaluated, but disagrees with the proposed broad increase to the appraisal threshold without consideration of specific real estate markets. Do you remember? You're going to hear time and time again that the appraisals cost too much and they take too much time. Well, guess what? The National Association of Realtors tends to disagree. Do you know when you have an appraisal done, and this is from the NAR's numbers, not mine, that the appraisal fee only represents, are you ready, 0.18% of the total transaction cost. 0.18%. Do people out there really want to get rid of the appraisal process, the third-party, unbiased real estate appraiser to be there to protect the bank, to make sure that they don't do something stupid, and to protect the consumer to make sure that they're not paying too high of a price, or just making sure that they are educated in the value of the price that they're paying? You want to get rid of that per 0.18%? What are you trying to sell? Seriously, what are you trying to sell? The NAR also states in their specific letter, commenting on the minimis, they specifically say the agencies note that increased cost of burden is often a result of delays due to the lack of appraisal availability. NAR's own research shows that the typical wait time for an appraisal in 2018 was 7 days. 7 days, with 63% of realtors reporting wait times to be 7 days or less. The question is, what wait time is burdensome? When asking about the ease of obtaining an appraisal, 67% of realtors felt that it was very easy or easy to get an appraisal, and only 1% noted it being very difficult or difficult. Given the vast majority of realtors feel getting an appraisal in an area is not a problem, it is hard to imagine that the wait time for an appraisal is resulting in a large number of cost-inducing delays. Based on average appraisal cost of the realtor's sentiment regarding appraisal time and wait, NAR does not believe that appraisals are creating a cost burden on a national level. But the problem is likely to be restricted to specific markets. In other words, the rural counties tend to wait longer and have higher appraisal fees. And folks, especially for those of you that are new to real estate, that's nothing new. That's been the way it's been for 30 years, if not longer than that. It takes longer to get a rural county appraisal done. There is no shortage of appraisals. There is no national crisis, and there is no reason whatsoever to start raising up the de minimis, because I'll tell you something right now, bad things can happen when it comes to risk assessment in the banking system. Everybody, the National Association of Realtors, all of the organizations, all of the state coalitions are against this specific de minimis raise. But guess who's for it? Guess who came out in the 9th inning, in the 11th hour, in the final round to say we are for this de minimis raise? And that, of course, is the ABA. The American Bankers Association today offered support for the recent proposal by the financial regulatory agencies to raise the appraisal threshold for residential real estate transactions from $250,000 to $400,000. The American Bankers Association is the only one that I know of so far that is coming out and saying this is good. And I just have to say one thing. I actually have to say two things. Number one, ABA, in 2008, all of your members got bailed out. They will not get bailed out again because the American public will not deal with that again. Community bankers and realtors, you hear me on this, especially if you guys are rural realtors. If you're in rural counties and community banks are out there making loans without appraisals, maybe they're not doing their proper due diligence. Folks, you go to church with these people. You see them in grocery stores. These are people you know on an intimate level. They're making loans. You better make sure they're doing it right. You better make sure a third-party unbiased opinion's in there, because if you make a bad loan, you're going to be responsible to that for your entire community. As a real estate appraiser, we deal with a lot of community banks, and my clients are ordering appraisals every single day because they have a responsibility to their community. They take it really, really, really seriously. But if you're a community bank out there that doesn't, watch out, because now realtors and consumers are starting to listen to this, and they're starting to go, wow, this is not a good idea. Do you really think that a consumer would buy a piece of property without having a proper appraisal done? Think about that for just a minute. Would you buy a piece of property without having a home inspection done? Why wouldn't you have an appraisal done? And for those of you that are Industry Syndicate members, do you know that when an appraisal is done by the bank, your consumer should not use that appraisal to make a decision? Because a recent ruling in California and their court system basically stated, look, the appraisal that's done for the bank is there for the bank's risk assessment, but it shouldn't be used by any homeowner to make a decision if they're going to buy the house. Do you know that? Are you willing to take that risk for your client? Are you willing to take on that risk for yourself, that amount of liability? Oh, yeah, guys, they're going to sell it all day long. This is great. This is faster. This is cheaper. This is better. But for a measly small fee, 5 to 7 days, you want to put all that at risk? No, you're not. You're smarter than that. You're better than that. You protect your client. You protect your consumer, and let us do our jobs. If you have a client or a consumer that gets a PIW, a property inspection waiver, or an appraisal waiver, you might want to say to them, look, you may want to think about getting your own appraisal. Just like you would recommend perhaps a home inspection, might want to recommend your own appraisal. And if you need one, go to www.getmytruevalue.com. That's getmytruevalue.com. ABA.com. My hat's off to everybody that is against this de minimis rise. ABA, I just want you to listen to one little soundbite right after the financial crisis of 2008. I want you to listen to just one little soundbite right after 2008.
Many of us were told in private conversations that if we voted against this bill on Monday, that the sky would fall, the market would drop 2,000 or 3,000 points the first day, another couple thousand the second day, and a few members were even told that there would be martial law in America if we voted no.
Did you hear that? That was from the floor of the House of Representatives after the financial crisis of 2008. They were voting on the bailouts. Do you realize what he said? Martial law. The stock market would drop 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 points, whatever. Do you notice what happened in November of last year when the 10-year Treasury yield hits 3.4%? What happens to the stock? That's just a simple little 3.4% hit. That's just a 5% 30-year mortgage. That's all it is. That's how fragile the entire market is at this particular point in time. And you want to start doing something like this? So syndicate members, you need to understand what the sausage is, how the sausage is being made, and how we got here, where we are today. But your most important thing as being a very productive real estate agent and a very smart real estate agent and a smart real estate investor is you establish a relationship with a real estate appraiser. And do it as soon as you can. Folks, I've got real estate agents and I've got real estate investors that call me all the time, especially the investors. They call me all the time. Because remember, I'm an investor too. I don't know if you know that or not. I flip houses. I own a rental property. I do the same thing. And if you're believing your own hype and you're going to lose your ass, I'm going to tell you, you're believing your own hype, you're going to lose your ass, especially for you novice investors, you first-time investors that are out there. Maybe when your spouse are thinking about getting into a investment piece property together, you call me first. Because if you don't call me first and get that appraisal, that's fine. You're going to call me after you guys are going through your divorce because you're going to lose your butt. You're going to get mad. You're going to upset each other, and your marriage is going to fall down. I've seen it happen so many times. You establish a good relationship with a real estate appraiser. You've come to the right place. I want to welcome all of you from the syndicate to the Voice of Appraisal show. We're going to break it down for you. And we're also going to ask you for your help. We're going to ask you for your help because we need your help. Let's help each other. Help us help you. We need to open this up. We need to open up a nice dialogue between our professions and make sure we're a good benefit for everybody else. As far as the AMC business model is concerned, the Industry Syndicate is filled with forward-thinking people. And I'll tell you something right now. The appraisal management company model is not forward-thinking. It's old. It's a dinosaur. I will say this. There are some good AMCs out there. But a great majority of them are dinosaurs. And dinosaurs are nothing but big, fat, heavy lizards that just stink the entire place up. And that's what's going on. We're going to get into it. Right now as we speak, it's Thursday, right, Kevin? It's Thursday. Right now as we speak, the Louisiana case is in front of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. They're trying to find out what's going on there as far as the FTC case is concerned with the Louisiana Real Estate Appraisers Board. There's just so many things going on. And we're going to cover it every step of the way. I think for our appraiser listeners, the recording of that case, I guess, should be out pretty soon because I guess they do record in the Fifth Circuit, but I don't think they record in the Supreme Court. But if they have that recording, we will break it down for you in the next shows coming up. So we've got a lot of things to go over. Again, I want to thank the syndicate members. I want to thank all of the members of the Industry Syndicate. We had a terrific conference call the other day. There's some wonderful personalities. They really set down some really good goals for the Industry Syndicate, and I'm really excited to be part of it. And I think it's really going to help the appraiser's message get out to other professionals that are out there today that need to hear this, that need to understand this, that need to realize that there's a lot of stuff going on over on this side. And if we work together and we know each other's boundaries and we know what each other are there to do, then I think it's just going to benefit our industries as a whole going forward. So go to www.getmytruevalue.com, getmytruevalue.com, establish a good relationship with a real estate appraiser, and let's all have a profitable 2019. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our show for this week, and as always, I would like to thank you for listening as we journey through the mysteries and complexities that are, in fact, the real estate appraisal business. I would like to thank my producer, Kevin Kenny, for being here for his thoughtful insight and knowledge. I also want to thank the Industry Syndicate for their invitation to join their network, and we're very happy to be part of it. God willing, we're going to be back here very soon reporting from the front lines of the real estate market. In the meantime, you kiss your spouse, you hug your children, enjoy your day, be safe in the field, You've been listening to Phil Crawford on Voice of Appraisal. We'll talk very soon.